Congrats on getting beyond $1 million. What got you here won't always get you there. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to reach beyond their 7-figure business and scale to 8, 9, and even 10 figures. I'm Brad Weimert, and as the founder of Easy Pay Direct, I have had the privilege to work with more than 30,000 businesses, allowing me to see the data behind what some of the most successful companies on the planet are doing differently. Join me each week as I dig in with experts in sales, marketing, operations, technology, and wealth building, and you'll learn some of the specific tools, tactics, and strategies that are working today in those multi-million, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Life can get exciting beyond $1 million. Keala Kanae.
Keala Kanae, yeah.
See, I've said this both ways while I've known you. And it's one of these things where, like, you know how sometimes you try to create a rule to remember something?
Yep.
But then you create the wrong rule and you remember the wrong thing.
I'm good with it either way, man. I get called all sorts of things. Rarely do I get called by my actual name, though.
He just did a little like montage of people fucking up my last name, like the guests that come on, and it's
Well, how do you pronounce it then?
I pronounce it Weimert.
Weimert.
Yeah, okay. Weimert. But I get Weimart.
Yeah.
Often. Los still fucking calls me Weimart. I corrected him literally yesterday. I've known the guy for 10 years. Weimart. I get Weimert. Yeah.
I thought it was Weimart.
Yeah, Weimert.
Weimert.
Yeah. Like Bert. I tell people that I can't wear big hats because I have a Bert head. Some people have Ernie heads. I have a Bert head. Keala
Kanae, yeah.
Keala Kanae. Keala Kanae is probably my favorite name of any guest I've had on the show so far.
Sweet.
Yeah. Is there any heritage to it?
It's Hawaiian.
Okay.
I'm born and raised in Hawaii.
Got it.
I don't know if you care to know, but like an interesting fact, my first name is Nathan.
Oh, really?
But in Hawaiian culture, because the Hawaiian language was banned when it was annexed by the U.S., so you couldn't have a Hawaiian name and go to school. So they started giving all their kids an English first name to be called that in school, and then a Hawaiian middle name that they called them at home. And then that it's just stuck around after they lifted the ban on the Hawaiian language. That just habit kind of stuck around, kind of like, grandma cutting the ends off the ham. Yeah. People forgot why they were doing it. And so it's just kind of stuck around.
Because the pan wasn't big enough.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. That whole thing.
Yeah.
So most of my friends in Hawaii have some sort of an English first name and a Hawaiian middle name, but we always get called by our middle name our whole lives.
Crazy.
So if I'm sitting at the DMV and they're going, Nathan, I'm like, who the fuck? Oh, yeah. Like, that's how rarely I recognize it. If you call me Nathan walking down the hallway, I won't even pay attention.
That's amazing. It's not every day that I get to learn a new way in which the U.S. was racist in our past. So that's fantastic.
Yes. Let's take them over and then oppress the shit out of them.
Well, I'm glad I know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So you, as of late, have been going heavier on personal brand and getting info out. I think there are tons of reasons to do this, but give me backdrop, because through that, you tell your story a little bit while you're pushing out social stuff these days. So how'd you grow up in business?
So I got started as an affiliate marketer. So I was working in a coffee shop, minimum wage, 12 years of trying all sorts of stuff. Nothing really, I never really applied myself, to be honest, but, and then I got into affiliate marketing. So to give you more context for the backstory, August of 2012, I gave my girlfriend, my mom had a cardboard box she was taking down to Goodwill for a customer of hers. She was taking care of an elderly woman. And so, August of 2012, I went shopping in that cardboard box for my girlfriend's birthday gift because I had no money. So I gave that to her. And at the time I was learning a little bit about affiliate marketing. And this was kind of like this breakthrough moment where I'm like, I have really got to take this seriously. And 7 months later, I'd quit my job, had my first 5-figure month, and then, made my first $1 million as an affiliate marketer. And then going into 2016, decided to launch my own courses and coaching program around that, because that's what I was getting asked all the time. It was like, show me how you're doing it kind of a thing. And I'd sold a few courses on like Facebook ads or whatever. So then we launched November of 2016, the very end of November 2016, right between Thanksgiving and Christmas, when everybody tells you that like the coaching industry doesn't work because you can't buy that and put it under a Christmas tree for somebody, you know?
Sure.
And by March of 2017, so 4 months later, we were doing $1 million a month. So we scaled really quick, went from 2 to 60 plus employees in our first year, 20 million in revenue.
20 million your first year? Wild, dude.
Yeah, it was fast. And it came with all the struggles of scaling really quick. Mm-hmm. So, which ended up putting a lot of pressure on my business partnership. So, we ended up parting ways in 2018. That was an 8-month legal battle over who was going to get the company. I ultimately ended up with the company, spent 2019 rebranding the whole thing, which was a lot like starting all over again from scratch, come to find out. So that was a heavy situation of like, I cut my team by a little over half. Revenue fell quite a bit, right about the same, because we couldn't all of our marketing and sales material had the old brand on it. Sure. And the old brand was kept by my partner when I bought him out. I basically bought the client base, and that sort of thing. So, and some of the technology that we had. And then spent between all of 2019 rebranding, relaunched at the end of 2019. 2020, the pandemic hit. So we just kind of coasted. I basically took a mental break in 2020. Like the pandemic was awesome for me. I got a chance to do nothing at all. And then we doubled in 2021. We already doubled again this year in 2022. I'm going to aim to double again next year. So a lot of the transition has been, so where the whole personal brand thing comes into play is like I had 200 million views between 2017 and 2018 on YouTube. From what I understand from talking to like somebody on Ty's team, I actually had more views than the Here in My Garage video, but I never capitalized on it because I was like, I was focused on building the company and I wasn't trying to build my own brand. So I wasn't capitalizing on speaking gigs or podcasts. I was turning all that stuff down because I just wanted to build the company.
Focus on business.
Yeah. You know? And now the company basically runs without me. So, like in the last year, I've taken 3 months off, 3 different month-long vacations. And those are all 3 of our biggest months in the last 12 months. So they do better basically without me. And so now I'm working on building out the personal brand so that I can funnel that attention into whatever
the other things,
other businesses that I'm working on and stuff. If that makes sense.
Okay. So that was the timeline. 2 questions on that. And I want to go back to kind of like the elements of this, but before I forget, what were the videos on YouTube that you had posted that had gotten so much attention?
We call them portal ads. So we had tested a bunch of different advertisements, and then the one that seemed to pop that we were kind of surprised by was just me opening the front door to my house, like, hey, what's up? Welcome to my home. Da-da-da. And I'm walking through the house and I'm basically talking or alluding to what affiliate marketing is. And then I take them into my office. I do a screen share video. I break down the basics of what affiliate marketing is. I leverage some big brands there. Like I show that Best Buy, Amazon, Nordstrom, like all these big companies, they all have the ability for you to sign up as an affiliate. So now I'm kind of standing on the shoulders of giants, these big brands, which offers credibility to the concept. And then I push people from there into a PDF download and then a thank you page for the PDF download as a webinar registration. And the webinar sold to a low ticket front end. And then that took them to a phone call for the high ticket back end.
Beautiful. Broke it all down. How low ticket and what was it?
$99. So $99 course on like the basics of affiliate marketing and like how to set up your first sales funnel. The offer though clearly explains that like the biggest benefit of you buying that $99 course is that you get to talk to somebody on my team who will take you through a survey process, figure out what your goals are. And then from there, they can make a recommendation about, what your best next steps would be. So when I make the pitch for $99, I am selling them really on the idea of like the course is kind of the bonus because what you really want is this conversation.
Right.
And then, once they get into our members area, they go through a little process of completing a survey, and then they can book a call with somebody on my sales team. Then they watch a video after they book the call. They watch a video where I present our high ticket offer. So by the time they get on the phone with the sales team, they already know what that is. There's no like bait and switch. The salesperson, they're not, sticker shock when the salesperson offers them a 10K, 15K offer on the back end. And then depending on what they're saying throughout that survey, that really dictates like, basically whether or not they're going to be a good fit for the program. And the advisors, the salespeople will know from there, like how to sift based on their answers.
So the sales call that you had teed up there, consultative, what's the close rate on that? And what were you upselling to?
So we upsell to at the time when we first launched, it was basically like just a year-long mastermind. So you get a once a month training, not once a month, once a week call with basically myself at the time, because I was, sales, operations, fulfillment, marketing, all the stuff. As you know, when you're like launching. Today it's more of it's a 12-week coaching program that's condensed. They work with what we call our tutors. So our tutors get them all set up with their business, and then they have 9 months of additional training after that on a weekly call with one of my master trainers. That all revolves around 4 core concepts. So we call it the C4 framework: conquering the mind, creating traffic, capturing leads, and converting sales.
And it's all specifically affiliate
marketing.
Yeah. Oh, crazy. Crazy. Okay. So let's rewind back to, this is present day. When was that? Because you said you had realized that you had all these views on this one YouTube video that was top of funnel for this whole thing. What year was that you dropped that video?
That was 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
A while ago.
Tail end of 2016, we launched the ad. In 2017, we started scaling it up. And then interestingly, what we had there was an affiliate. So I had a guy that had reached out to me and had said, he was interested in being an affiliate, but we didn't have an affiliate program yet at the time. And so what we did is we duped our whole funnel over and built all the tracking links in to like be able to record, track it back to him. He got to the point where he was sending us the majority of our sales, and he couldn't scale it up anymore based on the commission structure that we had. So what we ended up doing was more of a JV agreement where we would pay for the ads, and then we would split the revenue that came out on the back end. And then that's how we were able to continue scaling it up. So it was actually a big affiliate that was running all of that traffic on YouTube at the time. And so we started pulling all of our money off of Facebook and applying it to YouTube, because what we found was on the YouTube platform overall, not just like the conversion rates were better, but the watch times were better. So the visitor, like how long they would hang in a webinar, which kind of makes sense if you're watching videos.
They're there to watch.
They're there to watch videos. So they hit a webinar, and then they're willing to stay, right? So the watch times were better. But the thing that was like most valuable was what I started to see was like the velocity of the sale, the back end sale. So they didn't just buy more often, but they upgraded faster than Facebook traffic as well, which was important because we were doing what I call negative customer acquisition at this point. So at the time, we're spending $500 to acquire a $100 buyer. So I'm $400 in the hole. And so, we're at scale. So eventually we're spending about $1 million, $1.2 million a month on traffic. And so,
and not making it back
on the front. So those back end sales need to come in order to keep refilling the pipeline. So it's not just like the conversion rates, but it's also the rate of conversion. So the velocity through which they buy. And because they were coming through and upgrading faster, we had to take the money off of Facebook and apply it more to YouTube, because it allowed us to just cycle that money back into the front end and keep acquiring customers and scaling. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And that hit before or after the dissolve with the partnership?
Way before, yeah.
Okay, so that was happening. So you did scale with that. You had the partner there. Why did you have a partner in the first place?
That's a good question, man. I think part of it was probably a little bit, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through this, there was probably a little bit of lack of belief that I could do it alone, for one. The dude was really smart. really, really intelligent, really, really good, visionary kind of a thing. And I had learned a bit from him as an affiliate marketer kind of earlier on in my career. But I think probably the biggest reason was just lack of the belief that I could do it on my own.
How'd you find him?
We'd just been friends for a couple of years coming up in the industry. And the idea to start our own courses and coaching program came from a conversation that we were having I was visiting him up in Canada, and we had been talking about like how hard affiliate marketing was, in the sense that the information or the training was kind of all like fractured all over the internet. Right? If you want to learn how to run ads, you go to this person. If you want to learn, how to build funnels, you go to this person. If you want to learn how to do webinars, you go to this other person. You want to learn how to manage your email list, you go to somebody else. And so we were just having a random conversation. We're like, well, what if we just built it all under one roof and started our own courses and coaching program? And then during that conversation, I pulled out a whiteboard in the office at the house we were staying at, and I just started mapping out what each course would look like and how they would kind of linearly take somebody through the journey of starting from scratch and building an affiliate marketing business, basically. And that just kind of spiraled into, that was in 2015.
That was the roadmap.
Yeah, and then that just kind of slowly spiraled into how we ended up launching the business at the end of 2016.
What was the affiliate product that you were selling initially? And did it matter? Did you sell a bunch of shit and it didn't matter?
Primarily, when I first got started, I was actually an affiliate for a network marketing company that sold digital courses. So, right. So they had a network marketing like pay structure, but ultimately their products were digital. So that made it a little bit easier. So we did that. That's where I got my initial success. As I did that, I started kind of like learning how to better manage my lists. So when you're advertising, there's obviously a cost of acquiring a lead. And as an affiliate, when you're making like a sliver of what the sale is, there's also a need to really, monetize those leads that you're acquiring. And so eventually what I got into was kind of like segmenting off my list based on little surveys that I would ask, or sending out like a question, hey, would you want to learn more about this? And I could segment them based on a click if they would. And then I would promote other offers to the list, because if they're not buying the primary thing that I'm selling, then I would try to, sell other offers to that portion of the list that's not buying anything.
So you're basically, let me see if I got this right. So like you're driving people to an offer, and if they buy, maybe you also offer them the next thing like you're trying to upsell on the next page. And if they don't buy, you also split them to a different offer, or is it an email follow-up later?
Yeah, so basically it would be like after about 60 days or so of being on my list, if you hadn't bought the primary thing that I was selling,
got it,
then you would either go into like a segment that was just similar offers to that niche, right? Or if you clicked or opened on something that would segment you into like, are you interested in weight loss or health and wellness or something like that. And so I would segment them based on their activity, or at least do my best to. The technology at the time wasn't necessarily the best. It's a lot better today than it was back then.
Sure.
So yeah, I would sell a bunch of different affiliate offers to them after that 60-day mark. Another thing that we sold that did really well was a online shopping app that you would put on your browser, and it would like, whenever you were looking at a product online, it would show you other places that you could find that product cheaper. There was a water ionizer that we sold that was high ticket, like $5,000-$6,000 for a water ionizer and stuff. We crushed that thing so hard that like the company was trying to change the compensation structure, because the inventory, they were having a hard time keeping up with the inventory at the rate at which that we were selling their product. Yeah. And then, other than that, just picking up random offers off of networks and pitching it out to my list.
So the affiliate space is perpetually interesting, because the drivers behind it are different than if you're creating your own products and selling stuff. So when you were looking at picking the offers, were you looking at the sort of the best performing offers? And it's like EPCs, earnings per click, is one metric that people look at when they're picking an offer, right? meaning how much are you as the affiliate going to make based on everybody that clicks just into the email or into the offer?
Correct.
Because people know the conversion on the back end, so they can tell you these things. Were you looking at those stats and saying, hey, this is the most profitable thing I can give my list? And or were you looking at what products are going to be the best fit with the existing sort of avatar that I have in my list? Like, where's the balance between that and the affiliate space versus building your own brand where you have like this defined thing that's like, no, this is my avatar that I'm after?
So there's a little bit of that, a little bit of like looking at the EPC. Now, I mean, as an affiliate, it's a little bit difficult for, depending on where you're finding offers, on like to figure out like what really is the EPC, because a lot of the stuff that's listed isn't very accurate. It's relatively easy to kind of skew those numbers. So overall, what I looked for is, and this is, because early on, and I learned really quick as I was getting into it, that like the best leverage that you can have is a high ticket offer on the back end. So I would specifically be looking for programs or products that had like a 1K, 5K, 6K, something else that they would sell on the back end that would allow me to be profitable. And as an affiliate, when I originally started out, I would typically find some way to, generate traffic and sell a low ticket front end, and then get that buyer on the phone myself and sell them the company's higher ticket back end product, if that made sense. So, and then as far as like looking at what my list, what is in congruence with the list that an audience that I've already attracted, for a lot of that was like, I didn't care. Once you got segmented into like a non-buyers list, then I would just sell like low ticket offers, $200, $300, something that I could just send you to a sales page. You would buy, and I'm just trying to monetize that traffic that's left over that I haven't been able to convert on the primary offer that I was selling at the time.
And so you were doing, you got up to $1 million independently, where you're just picking up the phone. You're driving the traffic, pushing them to an offer. And then you're like, I'm going to get on the phone and sell you some shit.
Yep.
That's basically it, right?
Yep.
And is it more than a team of one at that point? Do you have any support? Or is it just you doing this?
To start out, no. It was just me all by myself. And then eventually what I started to do was bring on somebody that I guess now you would call like a setter. I didn't have that verbiage for them back then.
Sure.
But their job was to reach out to all of the buyers that I would generate and then run them through a short interview to make sure that they were qualified. So in other words, I basically just want to make sure that if I'm going to get on the phone, that they have the ability to spend over $1,000.
Right.
So they would take them through a short little questionnaire, find out what they have available and how serious are they. And then she would book a call with me. Then I would get on the call, kind of explain what else the company had to offer. And then I knew that I could at least make $1,000 sale, which would be a $500 commission to me most of the time. I can make at least that by picking up the phone. And if I'm going to spend an hour, I want to know that I can at least make $500 for that hour back then.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Easy Pay Direct supports many companies, a few of which teach sales training and specifically also offer the ability to provide setters for people. And part of this is that this whole world of selling high ticket offers has emerged in the marketing space, where it's like people have figured out, if I can convert X% of a high ticket, it's the way to make the whole traffic engine work, right? I can make it work. But in one of the beautiful things about business is business across the board, right? And this model functionally has existed in SaaS for quite a long time, which in Salesforce pioneered this model and pioneered SaaS for that matter, but of what they call BDRs, business development reps, which functionally are setters in the high ticket ecosystem that they then push to an AE, an account executive that is the experienced one to sell the product, right? Exact same model, but now sort of retooled in the high ticket world, which I love. Like I love seeing people, sort of figure it out, but it's like, we all should probably just look at history and be like, what's working? Right. How do we just redo the thing that's already working or has? What is different about the process now to sell that stuff versus when you were doing it solo as one person? Or is it functionally the same thing, but you're just now it's not you on the phone and you've got the ecosystem there doing it?
It's basically functionally for the most part the same thing. One thing that I would say though that's probably changed is that as that model has popularized, the consumers have gotten more intelligent. Right?
Sure.
In that space. So they know what's coming.
Yeah.
Right. They've been through the process before.
They know they're on a call to be sold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas back then, back in like 2013, 2014, I was much better able to position it as like, hey, I'm just going to do a quick consult with you, see if we have something else that might, be a good fit for you. And people would love to like get on the phone, especially because at this point they've seen my ads. There's a little bit of like, starstruck fame that went on into that. Whereas today people are a bit more, I'd say, educated. They know that they have, more options in the marketplace, I would say. So optimizing that process and earning that client's trust on the back end is probably a bit more difficult than it was back when I first started. But other than that, it's functionally the same. I still sell a low ticket front end on the front. So I don't do nobody gets on the phone with my sales team unless they've bought. Cause I don't want to so I see a lot of people do like direct to a booked call, right? They run an ad direct to a calendar. You can book a call and you get on the phone with the team or whatever. And for some people that works. For me, I just want like the most serious person, the person most likely to spend money with me is the person who's already spent money with me. And so if I can get your attention for about an hour to two, and I can hold your attention and basically pre-educate you on why you need what I have to offer, and you're willing to pull out a credit card and buy, you're going to be much more likely to buy on the back end as well, So that's kind of basically our premise. At one point, and this is something I'll share that like probably a lot of people could get value out of. When we went through the rebrand process, one of the ideas that I had is, well, instead of selling a low ticket $100 offer on the front, why don't we sell a $1,000 offer on the front? So that way we'll only take the cream of the crop off the traffic, and then we'll sell the high ticket offer on the back end of a now $1,000 buyer. Because I'm getting people to watch a webinar anyway, and it's fairly easy to get somebody to spend $1,000 or $2,000 on a webinar. So we relaunched with that model. And there were several things that we discovered. One is, while we 10x'd the price, we probably 50x'd the amount of expectation of what the consumer expected to get for $1,000.
Oh, shit.
So having a conversation right away with them about spending even more money with us was not necessarily the smoothest. Okay. Which, hey, how did I not see that coming? So a lot of the friction that we ran into on the sales team was like, well, I just spent $1,000 with you guys. Like, I want to make sure that this is going to work first or whatever it is. Right. So they wanted a bit more fulfillment before they were ready for an upsell, which makes sense. That is something that I could have adjusted and moved towards. I had several strategies of like exactly how we could reposition the sales process to make that work. And at the same time, our average customer value coming through that process was still like over $4,000. So our ability to kind of scale up on the front end, there was definitely the ability to do that. The thing that ultimately changed it for me though is like when you look at, so if I'm running advertisements and I'm building an audience and I'm putting them in a list, and I'm only selling though to a fraction of what I used to sell to because I have $1,000 offer, the engagement on the list started to drop over time, right? So open rates are down, click rates are down, and the overall engagement was down. And so if I look at the business as an ecosystem of like, I'm generating this traffic and I have your attention for a little while. And if this is the quote unquote attention economy, right? Then it actually makes more sense in the long run for me to get as many credit cards on file as I possibly can than to get fewer credit cards on file. Because the moment that you give me some money and some trust, I'm going to hold your attention longer. And I know that for the longer I can hold your attention, the more opportunities I'm going to have to monetize that attention. Does that make sense?
Totally.
But when I'm selling to $1,000 offer on the front and I'm taking just a sliver of all that traffic and getting their attention, yeah, I have their attention for a good period of time. And I'm leaving a ton of money left in my ecosystem that's not being tapped into. And so once I started to put that all together, like if you look at As an example, Amazon's model was to go upside down for 12 years, basically, just to get people to put their credit card on file. And they knew that eventually, once they had enough people in that network that had a credit card on file, eventually in the long run, they would monetize that audience. And now they're like one of the richest companies in the world. Same concept for me. It was just like, why don't I get as many credit cards on file as I possibly can, and potentially even offer some additional, even lower ticket offers on the back end to my non-buyers, just to get them to give us that little bit of trust, so that we can hold their attention long enough to monetize that attention over time. Obviously fulfill, obviously keep the promises. I'm just talking, straight up marketing and sales. And I'm not necessarily talking about like fulfillment. Right. But bottom line, you give me $1, if you give me $0 or $1, at $1, there's 100% likelihood I'm going to have your attention longer. And that's what I want.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I think part of that too is that people, the notion of sunk cost is real. Like once somebody has invested anything at all, they're somehow tied to the outcome. And if they feel like they've invested, they don't want to walk away. And so if it's $1, and it might not even be money, right? It might be that they watched the whole webinar, right? It might be that they downloaded the ebook, even if it's free. But that one extra step is more buy-in. And so it would also make sense that if you have somebody that spent $100, that's then a part of the community, right? A part of your thing, they feel like they bought into a community, right? And they're part of it. And if they didn't buy at all, but they're still part of the community, they're not really part of the community.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That's good insight and hilarious. I mean, that's one of those like, hindsight's 2020 kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took us a little while, but we eventually went back down to the $100 front end.
What's the size and scope of the team right now? So you went up to 60, you went to 20 million a year quickly. Was it all off that one YouTube funnel?
Yeah, it was 2 ads. 2 ads were driving basically all that traffic. So there was probably 60 or so ads that were tested along the way, but it was really just 2 ads that were just absolutely crushing it.
And you went to 60 people quickly. You parted ways with the partner. Lots of revenue and people got out of there, dissolved. You rebranded, and now you've been growing now. How big is the team now?
The team is 36 people at the moment. So I'm doing bigger numbers than I was doing when we split and had a team of 60, and I'm doing it with 36.
Is that a product of your experience or technology today, or both?
I would say it's definitely a product of experience. So when we, our first year, we grew really quick. We brought on 60 team members or whatever the number was exactly. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was over 60 on the team at the end of 2017. Going into 2018, there was a time frame in there where we were doing about $1.5 to $1.8 million a month, and I was losing $200,000 to $300,000 a month of cash. So I did not necessarily understand how to manage the financials. This also is like one of the risks that come with negative customer acquisition, where you're losing money on the front to acquire them, and how quickly can you get that money back into the front end. At the time, we had let's call it, CFO, but I'm using that term very loosely.
I'm familiar with this.
Yes. And so, unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs are familiar with probably the tale that I'm about to share. But we had a CFO, a guy who had pitched us as like a CFO, and my partner at the time really liked him. And so we brought him on board. And very quickly, once I was able to fully get the CEO position, so this is one of the challenges we ran into as well. It was kind of like the environment that we had built was that there was 2 CEOs, co-CEOs. I don't think that can ever really work, especially not at scale. And so, because nobody knows who the boss is. If you have 2 bosses, you have no bosses. You know what I mean? So,
Mom and dad.
Yeah. And which one's going to give me what I want?
Yeah. And so if this one doesn't give it to me, I'm going to ask the other one.
Exactly. And so there was a lot of that was played. Or instructions are given, and then somebody else, the other person gives a different set of instructions, and now people are like, well, which path am I going down? These are 2 different paths. Things like that. So anyway, I eventually had negotiated the official CEO position. Once I had that, then I had the ability to like really pay attention to what the CFO was doing. kind of discovered that he was just way in over his head. There's an interesting conversation, Brad. This is what you want. This is what you want to hear from a CFO. I get on a call one day and my partner's like, hey, I think he took $200,000 out of my bank account to put it in the company account. I was like, what? No way. So I get the guy on the call and I'm like, hey man, did we like take $200 from so-and-so and put it in the company bank account? And he goes, oh yeah. It's just minor, just short term, just to cover the books, make sure we hit payroll. And I'm like, in what fucking world do we make 1.8 million in sales last month and need to borrow $200K from a founder? And his exact response was, listen, it's not my job to make sure the company is profitable. That's the CFO.
Wow.
That's like, I'm pretty sure that's your only job. Google your role, dude. Like, and that's when I'm like, that's the moment where I'm like, this guy has to go. So anyway, I get rid of that guy. I turn the company around. I get us back to profit. But that whole process was like a beautiful learning process. And I, regret none of it. Like if I had it all to do over again, I would do it exact same way because I can see how it's all served me. But going through that process and realizing how we had gotten into that situation has made me a lot more proficient at building a business today. And a lot more, and there's a much more emphasis on the efficiency of all the parts that are moving inside of the business. So right now, we're like right around $600,000 earnings per employee, which is a metric that we watch.
Wow.
Is to watch, like, for every head that we add, how much revenue do we add? And we make sure that there's, some good efficiency there, So at $600,000 per employee, that's better than most businesses. I have a really good friend, who works with a lot of COOs. You probably know who I'm talking about. And he'll say that the benchmark is like 400,000. If you're not doing at least 400,000 earnings per employee, you're lacking efficiency in your business. So we've just made this machine that's like super efficient. We're always looking for ways to optimize. We're looking for ways to automate as many processes as possible, and make sure that, like, when we're adding a head to the business, we kind of look at it like we're either adding a head to the business to either obtain revenue or retain revenue. Those are really the only reasons you add a head to the business, right? It's either going to help us grow, get more revenue, or help us keep customers, which helps us retain more revenue. And so we're watching that in our KPIs to make sure that as we add heads, those needles are moving in the directions that we want them to move.
And it's still all information around how to be an affiliate.
Yeah.
Amazing. What are you using to track those KPIs?
A gargantuan set of spreadsheets, bro. We use different tools at different sectors of the business, right? So in marketing, we use Hyros. And then we also have our own custom. One of my guys that I taught media buying to, who eventually I knew was going to probably outgrow the business and leave and want to start his own thing. Eventually, as he was ready to do that, and we had many conversations about this before he left, I made sure that I partnered with him on his agency. And so we're partners on his agency. As iOS was rolling out, the whole iOS 14 thing that everybody was freaking out about in 2020, he figured out how to create his own tracking that kind of worked hand in hand with Hyros. And so we're able to feed the data back. So we have a little bit of a custom platform, a bit of Hyros that gives us all of our marketing data primarily. The webinar and all those platforms, our email platform, they all give us the data that we need there. Inside sales, we use Close. I think it's called close.com, Schedule Once, and all those tools. So they give us all of the data that we need for this to manage the sales team. And on the back end, we use, I forget what support desk we're using, which is great that I can forget those things now, because there was a time when I was answering support tickets with a lot of cuss words, actually. I'm not the guy that should be on a support ticket.
I feel like that's not great protocol.
No, it's probably not best. Like, somebody please come in here and figure out how to optimize this. But whatever our support desk is, I forget at the moment, it might be Fresh Desk or something like that. That gives us the data on the back end. And obviously the CRM will tell us like what the refund numbers and revenue numbers are. Basically we have a couple of overseas, data input data entry people that will pull all the data and plug it into spreadsheets. And we have like a massive spreadsheet that feeds to the other spreadsheets for all the other departments. I'm aware that other people are like building out cool dashboards and Google Analytics and these things. We've just never found those to really, at the end of the day, be the best way for us to see everything that we want to see. And so right now we're working with another company that's like trying to figure out how to build us some custom dashboards so you can kind of see it more visually. But for the most part, it's a monstrosity of spreadsheets.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about this with somebody the other day because I was talking about Excel, and we have this just nightmare of a licensing thing with Microsoft, because at some point we bought licensing with Microsoft through some third-party vendor, right? But then our licenses sit here, and Microsoft doesn't really know what's going on with them. And then an employee left, and they had access to it. And now we're trying to like reconcile the licenses across the domain, and Microsoft doesn't know how to do it. And somebody was like, why the fuck are you using Excel? And I was like, kind of because you have to. Like it's the end of the chain default for data sets. So in order to move things from platform to platform, it's the reliable thing, right? Like you can export it from any platform and then you're in Excel. And what you're doing is living in the spreadsheet. And that's just how it has to go sometimes.
We do it primarily through Google Drive.
Sheets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Using Google Sheets.
I do too, whenever I can. But we have data sitting in all these different platforms, specifically with banks, and they export the data. Yeah. And so they have to do it. They have to export it, and they do it in a CSV. And anytime I can, it's back to Sheets if I want to, right?
Right.
But the raw data is sitting in a CSV.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's, But anyway, the point was really that like, I think that we all want to live in this fantasy land of we're going to have a magical dashboard that's going to show us all the stuff and it's going to be perfect. But you have to audit the validity of the data. Like, is it accurate or not? And when you know it's accurate is when you have the raw data in a sheet somewhere and you can look at it and you're like, yep. And that's the easy way to quickly manipulate it.
I totally agree. We've tried several different things to like give us these cool like dashboards, but at the end of the day, it's not the data that's valuable. It's the ability to interpret the data that's valuable, right? Because like a bunch of numbers and no ability to interpret them. And we've had people on the team at times who've like misinterpreted the numbers, which causes poor decision making, And so
yes. Well, I routinely say in our company, bad data is worse than no data. Don't even show me things if they're not accurate. And if I can instantly see that they're wrong, like you get a couple strikes and then we're not working together. Because if you're presenting bad data to me and you didn't take the time to really thoroughly audit it, you're putting me in a position where I'm going to make a decision based on this data as if it's accurate. And that can be catastrophic. And usually if there's a huge disparity in the data, something clicks in my head and I say, there's no way this is right. This can't be right. But if it's close, I can make a terrible decision based on that wrong data.
Over time, you get the ability to spot trends.
Definitely.
Is why, right? So when you start looking at the data, you can kind of figure out like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. I don't think that's even possible.
Yep.
And then because you've been so exposed to it for so long, you can immediately just start spotting the trends.
Yep.
Whereas like other people on the team might not have that same context to understand the content that they're looking at.
You got it. And the problem with that is that we can't rely on the expertise of an individual in a scaling company that's moving quickly. You need the system to be in place with the isolated data so that a newer person can come into that role, look at it and trust it and know that, they shouldn't have to rely on the contextual accuracy of the data. They should just be able to rely on the data being accurate.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, like in business, there's just so many numbers that you can look at.
Right.
That, I mean, you could spend your whole fucking day.
A lot of people do. Yeah, totally.
Just looking at numbers. And it's like trying to decipher what numbers matter most and that we should look at every day. Like as an example, earlier today, you asked, what our conversion rate is on our back end. And the truth is, I don't know what the conversion rate is on the back end because I don't watch that number. The number that we watch, the primary KPI for our sales team, and I think this is probably like undervalued by a lot of sales teams, is what we call average appointment value. So the moment that we book an appointment on a calendar across the entire sales team, what is the value of that appointment? And then we hold the team accountable to raising that number as we start to see, that it's trending to like, we can definitely hit this, and it starts to kind of stabilize. Then we'll like bump it up as one of the KPI goals. Is like, let's get the appointment value up. The reason for that is, several things. One, the sales team lies.
That's shocking.
It's crazy. I know.
Shocking.
Right? Then a bunch of people who are incentivized by commissions are like, well, how do I fudge this? So, what we found is when we try to measure like average call value or something like that, or close rate, what people will do is fudge the numbers and say like, oh, I didn't talk to that. That customer didn't buy, so I didn't actually talk to them. Right? And so they'll misreport in their spreadsheets to fudge their numbers.
Ugh.
But you can't fudge whether or not there was an appointment to begin with. So it keeps the integrity of the sales team, of the sales numbers, one. It also captures everything else that's relevant. Like people will ask, well, what's the average dollar value per sale? Well, that's captured by average appointment value, because if you're going to bring your appointment value up, you've got to be selling a higher dollar thing. It will capture the conversion rates are in there. So how well are they converting to a back-end offer? That's also captured in average appointment value. So there's all of these sub data sets that feed into average appointment value. So just looking at that number at a high level, I can tell basically how the sales team is performing. And when that number starts dipping, then we look at it across the entire sales team. So we're looking for which individuals on the sales team are underperforming based on that metric. And then from there, we can look into their close and all these accounts and figure out, okay, what is their average dollar value per sale? How often are they making an offer? So what's their offer rate? What is their conversion rate on those offers? So then we can get more granular as we need to go down in order to figure out what the issue is. And we can either coach them up or decide that they're, not a good fit for the team. They're just not going to perform over time. But my point is that like in the data, it becomes really important to what we call it dashboard and undercarriage. So we have dashboard KPIs, which is what me and the executive team look at. Those are the only things that we look at. So we have a weekly meeting where we're looking at just our dashboard KPIs. And by dashboard KPIs, I'd say it's kind of like when you're driving a car, you have a dashboard. You don't see all the data of the vehicle. You basically just see like speed, temperature, how much fuel you have, these things. You see enough to know, am I going to arrive alive, on time, and, safely? Those are basically the only things that you can tell, which is what you want to be able to know in goals or the achievements for the month, right? It's like, are we going to arrive at our destination, at our goal, alive, healthy and safe? Or is there an issue that's going to keep us from that? But if your engine starts smoking in the car, you take it into a shop, they plug it into diagnostics, they pull all this other data that you could never see into a system, and they try to figure out what's actually happening in the car. Same thing in data sets with the team. It's like dashboard KPIs and undercarriage KPIs. The undercarriage KPIs are filtered by data entry, so they're putting it all in there, and we can see it, but at the director level, trying to lead the team, we're not looking at it until something on the dashboard goes yellow or red, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that.
And then we have to pull it out and figure out what's causing that.
I love that. Yeah, this has been like a significant struggle in my world for a very long time because I geek out on numbers. So like I want to dig into the undercarriage stuff and your nomenclature. And for a long time, we've had dashboards that just have too much shit, right? It's like, it's fun stuff. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. But it's too much. And so we do a scoreboard in KPI, which is the same thing as what you're saying, right? It's the dashboard KPI for you. We do a scoreboard in KPI with the same concept. I love the car analogy. The concept being that when you look at the scoreboard in a sports game, you see the score and a couple other things. But all of the stats that now everybody tracks when they geek out on sports, that's not on the scoreboard. It's buried, right? It's buried. Now everybody's still looking at it, tracking it, but it's not the scoreboard. So we have the scoreboard, and then we have what we call management dashboards, which are the ability to dig into the other things and say, hey, what's the rest of the story here if we want to look at the independent stuff? But it's not the thing that I want to be looking at on a day-to-day. It also, quite honestly, when you pull up a dashboard, if you have 30 different things on it, I don't know about you, but my mind immediately goes somewhere else. I'm like, there's a lot here. And I kind of people glaze over, and it's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too much information is almost as bad as bad information.
Yeah.
It's like, cause it's overwhelming.
Totally.
We're the same, like sometimes things will show up on our dashboards cause my directors will put together their dashboards of like what they're presenting on our executive meetings. And sometimes stuff will show up there. And then I'll start looking at it and I'll start thinking about it. And then my mind is like moving. And then I'm like, yo guys, that does not need to be here. Like that is just too much. Okay. Take that off. This is supposed to be condensed, right? Or we'll be trying to figure out some problem and too much information comes into the meeting. And I'm like, oh God.
I see like I'm envisioning your directors in an executive meeting all talking. The meeting's going on. Keala has gotten quiet. And he's like in his own world. He's zoned out. Nobody knows why he's not talking. And then all of a sudden he just yells. And he's like, that does not need to be here. Get rid of that dashboard element. And everybody's like, whoa.
It's a little bit like that, maybe.
We're at Traffic Conversion 2022. And you're going to speak tomorrow specifically on email marketing. Mm-hmm. So if you're up for it, I want to dig into some of that subject matter.
Let's do it.
Literally, when we sat down, you said we have a 58% open rate on our emails. Mm-hmm. This is, if I didn't know things about you, I would just think that you were a liar. Mm-hmm. Like that's a wild percentage, right? Mm-hmm. That is average open rates are what?
Probably somewhere between 10 and 15%, maybe.
Maybe, right? And 58.
58.
In what context do you get a 58% open rate?
Explain what you mean by in what context.
Well, so like if I said, so I have a 92% open rate when I send to my family. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So you have a 58% open rate.
Account wide.
Oh, crazy.
Across our entire list.
By the way, it's a little fucked up that 8% of the time my family doesn't open the emails.
If I were your family. No.
So 58% account wide is crazy.
So there's lots of ways that I can go on this, but long and short of it is at the time that I did my slides for this event. So I got an update yesterday from the guy that manages our list. And it's actually the current open rate account wide is 59.1%. But at the time that I built the slides for this presentation, we had about 51 million and whatever many emails sent this year, 2022, 29 million, blah, 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 whatever numbers, opens. So
wow.
We count to 58.44% open rate. Now we're up to about 59%. The major strategy here is that just most people just don't understand how email marketing works and what the email platforms are looking for. And when I say email platforms, I'm like email service providers, Google, Yahoo, Hotmail, these sorts of things. Like, what are they looking for in order to get an email in the inbox? If you don't know the rules, you can't win the game. And the rules have definitely been changing, and they're tightening up. They're getting more and more difficult. So email was not designed so that you could click send and a million people could hear your message. That's not what it was designed for. Email was designed to be a conversation between two or a few parties. And so it's really about dialing in and turning your email list instead of a broadcasting system into more of like a conversational system and driving that. So the way that we do this is to give you kind of a short breakdown of how this works. Obviously, I won't do the whole presentation here, right? But the things that control your email deliverability at the highest level, the number one thing that's most important is the IP reputation. So the reputation that's attached to the IP address that you're mailing from to begin with. So the server that is hosting the emails that you're sending, what is the IP reputation attached to that server? Now, depending on where you're at, in business, you may or may not have control of that. The vast majority of people don't have any control of that because they're sending from some sort of a platform that's using a shared IP. which means that you're mailing from that IP address, I'm mailing from that IP address, and 100 other folks or a few hundred other folks potentially might be mailing from that IP address. And now we're sharing the reputation. So if there's people on the platform or on that IP abusing their list or not delivering well, it's hurting all of us.
And let's get specific for 1 second. So you're talking about the platform being like ActiveCampaign or
Correct.
Klaviyo or pick a email automation, MailChimp, email automation platform, HubSpot.
Correct.
That's sending. Got it. And so usually it's their IP address. And so several users that have a MailChimp account all share that IP address.
Correct.
Great. Got it.
And so if you're on a shared IP, you cannot control the reputation. There's too many other factors at play. So step one is to own the IP address so that it's only your IP. And therefore you can now control the reputation attached to it. The next thing that's going to control your deliverability after that, beyond the IP, is your domain reputation. So
and hold on, the controlling your IP, some of these platforms, just one of the value props that they have is that they allow you to have a dedicated IP.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So it's picking a email marketing platform that allows a dedicated IP through it. Is
Correct.
that the first step?
I would say that's the first step, depending on where you're at economically. It's like that may or may not make sense economically for your business. You might not be at a level of scale yet where that makes sense financially. But yeah, for us, we have dedicated IPs.
Got it.
So then one level below that is, and these are ranked, I'm giving them to you in order, meaning the more optimized you are at the highest level, the more you can get away with at the lower levels. So the domain reputation is the next thing. So domain reputation basically means that like when you send an email from your name at yourdomain.com has a reputation that's attached to it. And these email service providers will assign a reputation to it over time based on your open and engagement rates in your emails. So one like cardinal sin that I see a lot of like early stage entrepreneurs make is that they use their same domain that they email with internally and with vendors. They use that same domain to mail their list. Well, and then if you do that, then eventually you're not going to even be able to inbox when you're sending an email to your mom, as an example, because the domain has a reputation attached to it.
There's the 8%. That's why my family doesn't open 8% of the time.
Is apparent. Well, we'll at least, I'll let you lean on that so you feel better.
Thank you.
So anyway,
I do.
Domain reputation is the next one. So the ability for you to watch and control the reputation that's being attached to your domain. After that, you get into the basics. It's content and it's links. So content is what do your emails say? Like if you're using a term like Viagra or sexual activity or whatever, you're not going to inbox, right? And then there's the links that are inside of that email. So when
when you say you're not going to inbox, do you mean that you're not going to hit the primary tab in Gmail?
Correct.
Okay. So you might hit promotions or social. So those are the three tabs.
Well, if you're using some of those words I just gave you, you're probably hitting the spam.
Yeah, okay.
But so we consider inboxing the primary tab on Gmail.
Got it. Okay.
Anything less than that is like not quite the inbox because you don't check those other tabs.
And no, that's for sure. And how do you assess before you get to the next layer down? How do you know what the words are that you're not allowed to use? I mean, obviously there are some that seem pretty clear, but how do you know?
Well, you can find these lists online of like kind of your spam trigger words, but that's a little bit misleading because it's really not just the trigger word. It's the context in which you're using the word as well. So as the AI gets more and more intelligent on these platforms, like you've probably noticed that when you're in Gmail right now and you start sending an email, it'll start finishing your sentences for you. You've noticed that, right? And how often would you say that like it finishes the sentence fairly closely to what you were about to say?
It's pretty good, man.
Most of the time.
It's pretty good. Right. And it almost always is close enough. And in fact, it's not always my character, my personality. I'm like, I wouldn't normally say that, but fuck it.
But it's so easy to hit tab and
yeah, exactly. It's easy enough to just hit the button and keep going.
So that AI is developed from understanding like when you speak to this person, whoever you're sending an email to, what are the contexts usually of your conversations? Generally speaking, what are the contexts of the conversations that you're having when you're sending emails? So it's pulling that information in and trying to figure out how to finish your sentences for you, right? So if you understand that, then you understand that like it is that intelligence is looking at the context of a conversation, not just the content of a conversation. So it doesn't matter necessarily as much about what words you're using, but in what context are you using the words. So spam trigger words used to be something that was like very simple 5 years ago to say like, oh, well, you can't use these words. But these days, that's not quite the case. Yeah. And there's a lot of information or training out there about people like talking about how to like check your content, like, and check your URLs and stuff, and to like check your deliverability. But it's based on those latter two items that I talked about. So they're looking at content and links. Versus if you have a very high IP reputation and a high domain reputation, and you have a high open rate and engagement rate with your list, you can almost get away with just about anything else. You know, don't take that too far, but you can get away with a lot more stuff in terms of content and the links that you have in your emails.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, right?
It makes total sense.
Further up that you're optimized, the more you can get away with down below.
Yeah, this is a huge, I think, eye-opening takeaway probably for a lot of people, because like simplest terms for me, where I went immediately was SEO in 2001, right? SEO in 2001, the way that you ranked a site in any search engine in 2001, 99, 2005 even, was keyword stuffing. So like you would just put entirely, you would just put a shitload of the keywords that were relevant that you knew people were searching for. You didn't even have to have them in the body of the site. You could bury them in metadata or in like white text on a white background at the footer of the page, right? But the search engines would crawl it, they'd find it, and you would rank, right? Well, of course, the algorithms got smarter, and we're like, well, that's not serving the people's desires. They're not finding what they want. So now the SEO algorithms have gotten so much smarter. You definitely can't keyword stuff, right? It's much more elaborate. It would serve to reason that naturally email deliverability, which by the way, is also governed by the same motherfuckers that are controlling the SEO.
Correct.
Right? It's going to be more complex. So I think that's for me, that's a very powerful insight to think, oh, okay, I should probably rethink this.
Yeah, totally. So it's right along those exact same lines. The perfect analogy for like what used to be and what is today as the intelligence gets better. So, in 2021, I stepped back into my marketing team. I had stepped out for a little while. I came back into marketing and I was looking at like what we were doing, and I was like, what the hell happened to our open rates? And so I had kind of known this. I'd learned a lot of this stuff as an affiliate marketer because it was just so important to be able to effectively manage a list, because that was my livelihood, was the list, you know? So I stepped back in, I started looking at what we were doing. I was like, all right, I got to put together like an SOP around how we manage email. And one of the first things I got to do is improve our domain reputation and IP reputation. Now, most people would look at like a low domain reputation or low IP reputation or low open rates or low deliverability and think, oh, I have to back off and email less because I'm hurting my deliverability. Actually, you email more in order to bring it up. So we started mailing 3 to 7 times a day to bring this thing up. And so,
can I take a guess? I want to guess.
Go.
So you started this conversation by saying that you have to change the way that you're thinking about emails from broadcast to conversation. Was the accelerated velocity of emails short form in order to get a response, to get engagement in the emails?
A bit.
That was my
guess. That's part of it. Yeah. So that's
okay,
part
now
of it.
Tell me the real story.
So what we did is we broke the list into segments. So you have we had 10-day, 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, and 100-day openers. So in other words, people who've opened in the last 10 days, people who've opened in the last 30 days, people who've opened in the last 60 days, 90 days, and 100 days. And the 10 and the 100 are just like buffers on either end. But long and short of it, the person that's most likely to open an email from you is the person who's most recently opened an email from you. So past behavior being a predictor of future behavior, right? And so what we did is we took those segments now, and now we're mailing to we're purposely engineering a 25% open rate so that we can improve the domain reputation and IP reputation. So in the morning, we might send an email to our 10-day openers, people who've opened in the last 10 days. Now I know that when I send that email, I don't necessarily have to be as punchy in the subject line or as punchy in the copy because you're a recent opener, so you're likely to open again. So we'll send that out and now we'll get 40, 50% open rates, let's say. Okay. Now, later on in the day, we're going to send another email and we're going to send it to, let's say, 60-day openers. And we're going to see what their open rate is. So let's say that, they've now opened, let's say I got a 50% open rate on my 10-day opener, and then I send to my 60-day list and I get a 20% open. Well, right now for that day, I've got a total of 70 divided by 2. My open rate average for the day would be 35%. If we've gotten there, then I can go further out into my list and I say we'll mail the 100-day segment, which means now, by the way, keep in mind that the 10-day segment has been hit when you sent the 30-day segment, and they're being hit again when you're sending the 100-day segment. So they're getting 3 emails that day, as an example, right? So we'll send to the 100-day segment because we've earned the right to take that risk for the day because our overall open rate for the day has been solid. And what we're trying to do is reach out to those 100-day or those 90-day segments and pull them back in. By opening, they come back into your top tier segment, which is your 10-day openers, right? Mm-hmm. And now, so you're trying to cycle these people who are leaving your list, whose attention you're losing, you're trying to cycle them back into the top of that. And the way to do that is earn the right to get to do it by managing your email reputation throughout the day. So every morning we're sending an email that resets our reputation. So we know we're going to get 50, 60% open rate. We mail those 10 days. In fact, today, we'll get closer to a 70% open rate on a 10-day segment. And one of our key KPIs is watching the size of that 10-day segment. And is that 10-day segment growing faster than the lead acquisition is growing? So am I adding people to my 10-day segment quicker than I'm adding new leads into the 10-day segment? Because when somebody opts in and they open an email, they're automatically in your 10-day segment.
Right,
Make sense?
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we're outpacing that. Because if you're just looking at your 10-day segment and is it growing, well, of course it's going to grow as long as you're generating new leads.
Right.
But it has to be growing at a rate that's faster than lead acquisition, which tells you that your retention across your lead acquisition is greater. One of the lessons I've learned in business is retention is better than acquisition, more important than acquisition. But a lot of us in marketing and sales think about acquisition over retention because that's how we are as marketers, right? So now one of our key KPIs is our 10-day list. How quickly and how big is our 10-day segment, and how big and what is the open rate in that segment? So throughout the day, on any given day, we're mailing multiple times a day, but we're ensuring that we're keeping that at minimum on any day that we send, averaged out, we've got at least a 25% open rate. Why is this important? Well, if you're mailing the same lead that I'm mailing, but you're mailing them and you're getting a 20% open rate or 15% open rate, and I'm getting a 50% open rate on average when I send, I'm much more likely to hit the inbox than you are.
Right.
If we're competitors fighting for that lead's attention.
And is that because it rolls back to the IP?
Correct.
Where if the domain, not the domain, but actually the ISP that's sending from the dedicated, the score of that is going to be higher because your open rates are 50%. So this idea of the cascade of making sure that the 10 days are opening, when you send to the 30s, the 60s, the 100s, the deliverability is going to be better because your score is already higher. So the likelihood of them seeing the email is higher, which means that the likelihood of them opening is higher. That's all. That's the pattern.
And once you train them opening, you also get those little yellow labels and stuff that light up in their inbox. Once you train them to start opening, Gmail will start prioritizing your email in their inbox as well. Another trick that we do is we incentivize replies a lot. So we ask for replies. So we'll offer something out and then we'll tell them hey, in order to get this, just, click here and tell us yes. So you can actually just embed, so you can say, click here, tell us yes, or you don't want to typically use the words click here, but send us a reply here. You can make that hyperlinked. You can embed that hyperlink with all the information that's needed. So as soon as they click it, it opens up their email client. It has the subject line. It has the copy, the text that you want in the email. And all they have to do is literally just click send, right? But that send becomes a reply
Yes.
And then I have VAs that watch our inboxes all day, every day, and they manually reply back to everybody who replies to our emails. So we're building this two-way conversation, which is the other thing that email service providers want to see. They want to see that you're actually having a conversation with your audience. So if I'm getting 5% or 10% of my audience on an email send to just reply because I'm willing to, put them in a drawing to win a $1,000 Amazon gift card, or I've just dropped, a PDF for them or a cheat sheet for them or a video for them or something like this. And all they have to do is click one little link, send a reply, and we reply back with the content that they asked for. But if you're seeing that as an email service provider, as Gmail, you're seeing that, hey, when Brad sends an email, a percentage of his list replies and he replies back. That's why we invented email to begin with, is for that conversational component, right? So those are the other things that are like boosting your IP address, your IP reputation, and your domain reputation as well.
There are ways to automate that, right? So there are ways to say, hey, we sent an email, reply to this, and the link that you referenced is a mail to link, right? They click and it's the code for that is mail to : and it's PHP. That click it, opens the mail client. You can pre-populate the email, the whole thing. They send that. You could use any or many marketing automation platforms to say, hey, if they send this email, click this link, yada, 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 it puts them on a list and then automatically spits out another email. Is that bad? Even if and that also could be the case where you're sending from your domain that you send from that's dedicated. Do you still want a manual response to that to get the engagement?
Yeah, we still want a manual response to that so it doesn't look like canned responses that are coming back to them. So it basically tells the email service provider that there's like another human being that is following back up with all of these inbound messages.
And what is it that indicates that? Because you can't, I know in HubSpot, I can send directly from our EasyPay Direct server, right? We can go from the same mail account that we send the rest of our internal emails from HubSpot. Just not with, there are limitations to it, but I know that you can do that, but you still want to do an actual account?
Yeah, we still want whatever domain address that we mailed from, we want them replying directly back to that same exact address because that's what tells us that it's a reply, right? And then we want a human response so that we're customizing the responses a bit differently based on what's said in those emails. You also get a little bit of customer information here too, because they will erase some people will erase messages and actually write what they actually want to say. So we do get some insights from customers here also. But I mean, if I'm paying somebody overseas, a VA, $5 an hour, $6 an hour, and a few of them to just manage an inbox, the input versus output, the return on that dollar is so good. Why wouldn't I just invest in an actual human being there to make sure we have that human element in all the responses? To give you an idea of what this is worth, so most people don't know this, and I was actually talking to Amanda Holmes. Do you know Amanda Holmes? Yeah, Chet Holmes' daughter.
Yeah.
Her and I were talking recently, and she said that on average, for every dollar spent on email marketing, it's $42 in return. Ours is $126. So for every dollar I spend on email marketing currently, we make $126 back. That's far better than any ROAS that you're getting from basically any other platform. So why wouldn't I just keep investing and making sure that we keep pushing that number up as high as we can? And I look at email as an advertising platform that I have just more control over, right? It's just another advertising platform. I have more control over it than I do on something like Facebook or YouTube. So our ROAS there is better than it is anywhere else.
I dig it. Well, I have roughly 17 other questions that all have derivatives that would have more interesting things that I need to learn. But I also know that we're at time. So, Keala, where do you want to send people? Where should people go to find out about you?
Best place right now is just Instagram. Find me on Instagram, Keala Kanae. It's got 10 letters, but 47 vowels in it, so it'll be hard to find. But find me on Instagram. That's probably where I drop some of my, I'm more consistent on that platform. I've got a lot of good content on YouTube. I basically share everything that we do in our business, on YouTube as well. So that's another place to find me. Know that if you follow me on Instagram, though, you are likely to be reached out to by some spammer, some scammer, asking you to send them Bitcoin or something like that. And that is definitely not me, just so we're clear.
Also, to be clear, do I keep calling you Keala and it's actually Keala?
Keala.
Keala. Yeah. Keala is the way. So I feel better about myself. What percentage of the time do people fuck up your name?
Well, you're the first one that ever got it right.
I feel good now. Okay.
99% of the time I get called something other than my name. I'm just used to it, man.
Okay, good. Well, I feel better about that now. Keala, fucking awesome hanging out, man. I'm so glad you spent some time.
Thanks for having me, Brad. You're the man, dude. I appreciate it.
We'll talk
good.
more.
If you learned one thing on this episode, share it with another entrepreneur. They need to hear it. Also subscribe so that new episodes just show up on your phone. It's a lot easier that way. And if you want the really good stuff, check out our free BAM! Tactics and Strategies course. It's where we curate the best tips, tricks, and tools that our guests know, whether they've shared them on the podcast or not. Just go to beyondamill.com. You'll also find previous episodes and show notes at beyondamill.com.